Daredevil Born Again is releasing now, and so now I'm happy.
I have no care either way for the Daredevil thing, so it doesn't matter to me.
You didn't listen to the song?
But hey, he's back, so let the devil out.
Oh, I think it. Which one though? There's a couple versions. I haven't listened to the one that you released most recently.
Oh,
So,
well, I released Recasting Daredevil as its own lyric video. I haven't released any of our other messing around AI songs.
What do you mean? That we all sung? that was produced by us, Seth.
Sorry,
what are you talking about, Seth?
That was our beautiful voices.
Yes,
all
that's
four
right.
of us.
No AI was used in this production.
You need carbs!
May thy knife chip and shatter.
There is beauty in imperfections.
You're great. I am.
And if you feel it, are you watching closely?
How you doing?
Fine, a little sore today, but then
Just with working outside,
yeah,
a real man.
Yes. I know I've been working because I feel it in my bones.
If you're feeling it in your bones, that's a bad thing. You need to feel it in your muscles.
Nah, I'm not dead yet. I was chopping a lot of wood the other day, and just been working and stuff. So a little sore.
Very nice.
Nothing bad. So it is what it is.
So first off, this is supposed to be a Nolan Bros recording, as you know.
Yep.
Zach was working, and that's fine. We were just gonna go back to not. I don't like doing former Nolan Bros episodes because I like including Zach. But it was just going to be you, Josh, and I talking about
whatever,
anything. It was going to be a round table, which I still
the
want to do.
Round tables are fun, like those.
Yeah.
Especially I think if we can do them in the future, like semi regularly, but like with like bigger groups, it'd be a lot more fun as well.
I was gonna run this by you, but maybe once a month and recap the month and just talk about things that happened, like we would have talked about the Oscars for February.
If I had watched them.
Well,
I literally did not even know that they happened. I only learned that they happened because people said, "Oh, the Oscars happened."
Yeah, I've been keeping up. There's some interesting stories to talk about, but now Josh is incapacitated somewhere on the East Coast with an expired driver's license.
So is he like? He's in Atlanta, right?
No, he's going to visit Michael in Atlanta.
Okay. But so is he stuck at college right now and he needs to renew his driver's license so he can drive to Atlanta?
I believe that's what he said.
Okay. Because I read through that, I was still a little confused.
Yeah, so here we are, talking about Narnia instead.
Narnia.
And I'm honestly glad that it's just two of us today because I've been working on, which is now last week's episode, for Ninjas Are Butterflies. That was a really fun episode, but there was a lot, I wanted to get as much content and clips out as possible. And so that was today. And so I'm like, finally just a dialogue. Also, here's some behind the scenes. So we record on Riverside usually, and for some reason their computer was not liking Riverside. Then that was like a month beforehand, sometime in January. And then we eventually got it rescheduled, and I was like, okay, what are some different platforms we could try it on? So I tried Zencastr, and it's similar to Riverside. So backing up, the first recording was just, we couldn't hear them. They couldn't stay connected for very long. Like, it was a disaster. When we logged on to Zencastr the second time we rescheduled, we could see them, we could hear them, everything seemed fine. And then I couldn't get their downloaded video. So for some reason that didn't work. And so then I had to request a backup from Zencastr, which is basically a recording of the video call, which isn't as good as what Riverside does, and records locally and then uploads it so that I can get your videos. Anyways, Zencastr was able to get a backup for me. I got their video. Everything was fine. It's like, we can actually produce this episode and not reschedule a third time. And then as I started editing, I noticed their mouths were not moving along with their words. And so somehow it just goofed everything up. And every 10 seconds, their mouth would be like, we still had all their video and all their audio, but for some reason it was drifting. And so I had, for almost every single time I cut to them in the podcast, I had to readjust their mouth back to their audio. And it just took twice as long and it took forever. Finally got it done. And then I was able to get other stuff up today, which was like, the segments, the long clips, and then also the social media vertical video. So I'm excited because obviously we're recording this before it goes live tomorrow, but I'm excited to see some new people maybe who have joined the One-Eyed Film community. Welcome. But also just getting to collaborate with them was such an amazing experience, and they were so fun. And hopefully, I mean, they said they were open to doing it again, but well see.
Yeah, I only know them because of like the funny videos they've done, and I've seen like segments of the podcast, but I didn't know that was what their podcast was called, or anything like that at all. So but yeah, I mean, any publicity helps. Sounds like you guys had fun. Sounds like a good deal. Yeah.
And again, you haven't listened to it yet, but it gets pretty wacky. Like, we talk about the stuff they usually talk about. And I enjoy that. Not saying everyone from the One-Eyed family really would enjoy it, but it was very fun to have them on, and we wouldn't have that opportunity without this podcast. So, and technically without Zach. Zach has a fan page. If you listen to it, Zach has a fan page, and they repost some of his stuff, and he's like, "Hey, you want to be on the podcast that I'm on?" So that's how that happened.
That's pretty much. I'm on a podcast. I like your stuff. Could you help us out here?
True.
Can I get your face in the video for a while?
I mean, getting an hour podcast out of it was very fun for me, and hour and 4 minutes now that I'm looking at it. But yeah, that's something for the books. Okay, so Chronicles of Narnia. Sorry to transition so abruptly.
Narnia.
I didn't realize it was on Disney Plus.
Well, I mean, it would be because it's not like their biggest movies ever, but like I think I really don't actually know too much about how much money they make, but I know that they put a substantial amount of budget into it, and that it looks pretty good. Like, it's kind of like a Lord of the Rings light, I think, is kind of the best way you can really think about Narnia, both in like the book context and for how they were written, and also the movies themselves. Like, you look at them, you can kind of see some influences from the Lord of the Rings movies, in regards to like the style and the battle scenes and stuff like that. And they're good. They're just not like as good as like, Lord of the Rings, which wasn't the point of the Narnia books, and it's not exactly the point of the Narnia movies themselves, I would say, either. But yeah, so that doesn't surprise me that it's on Disney Plus, because there's plenty of people who watched it as kids, myself included. I'm pretty sure you did as well. And so, if you want to watch it, look, we have it on Disney Plus. Subscribe, give us more money.
But it was made by Disney as well, correct?
Yep, it was.
Okay, that's what I didn't realize. I thought it was, I don't know why I thought otherwise, but I mean, this is similar to what I've said about National Treasure in the past, wishing that there were more PG, entertaining, action-packed movies. So much of the time that genre and style leans into PG-13, and it kind of ruins the movie, because then you can allow 1 to 2 F-bombs, some overly suggestive violence, like having it state PG, like National Treasure, like Chronicles of Narnia. One, makes it more available to kids, and as an adult, just makes you feel not like, understandably, you can let your guard down in a good way, in the sense that it's like enjoyable and not edgy, I guess. Yeah,
it's a very good party movie, I think, or I think the Narnia movies themselves are very good for, like, if you've got a group of friends over and you want something to watch, like either seriously or just more casually. It works both ways as that. Which, I mean, Lord of the Rings is, like, again, I think we're going to be making a lot of comparisons because of obvious reasons between the history of Tolkien and Lewis and the books themselves, the comparisons and all of that. But like, the Lord of the Rings is a bit more serious, and like, you kind of got to be focused a bit more on it, generally speaking. I mean, you don't have to, but that's kind of what the films are for. And the Narnia books and the Narnia movies are a bit more designed to be entertaining, designed to be enjoyable. Their story format, they're not quite so deep necessarily. Like, especially like when you read the books, like it's like, oh, who could Aslan be? Man, I just can't figure out the analogy, huh? Like, it's for kids, obviously, and so that's also what kind of makes it charming in its own sense.
The reason we're talking about this, and actually I realized in our spreadsheet it had said when the Netflix show releases or Netflix movie releases.
Oh yeah, that's right. I totally forgot about that.
It's that we said that was when we were going to talk about it. But right now it's rumored that it's going to release December of 26. So that'd be a while. But the little bit that we do know is that Greta Gerwig is directing it. And she has said that it's going to be rock and roll style is the word that she used. And I don't know what that means. Nobody knows what that means.
And that doesn't... Now, obviously, there's still a lot of time, but when the director or the producer or the director of your TV show of a children's fantasy series from like the 1950s says that her adaptation is going to be rock and roll, that doesn't give me very positive inclinations, especially because isn't it Netflix that's doing it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the other thing is that Netflix has also tried adapting other book series, particularly one I have enjoyed called The Witcher, and they didn't do a very good job at that. So I mean, again, there's always a possibility that it can work, but I'm a bit more skeptical. Yeah. Especially just Greta Gerwig, rock and roll. Yeah. Again, it could be fine, but I don't think I'm a little bit more hesitant about that, especially because, there's a lot of fantasy series that are being adapted into a TV format. I mean, that started with Game of Thrones, and that's been popularized with a whole bunch of other shows that are like that. But I think I think Chronicles of Narnia actually works better as a movie series. And one, I've already seen that because of the movies that have already come out. And I think that formula actually works a bit better. Maybe it's not as profitable, but I think that formula works a bit better because each story is like its own story. Like each book of the 7 books tells its own story. They kind of are in line with each other, especially the last 4 ones kind of have more interconnection between different characters. But I think that format works better because you can basically just do whatever you want for your single movie and it's all wrapped up and it works. And we already have seen that with like the first 3 movies that they produced, and those ones were all pretty good. Like, I know that there's like some argument between people which ones are the best. I don't really have that much of a stake in the argument, but I think that format where it's more like the Harry Potter is going to be better because like the books themselves, especially, I think one of the weaknesses and also kind of the strengths of the Narnia books is that they're really short. Like I have them literally on my shelf right outside. And I mean, like they're like this long when you put all 7 of them together. And like now, for example, like the Harry Potter books, like each book is like this or something like that, or like this. So whereas with like a lot of other books that you're adapting, they're extremely huge and you're trying to condense and say, what can we remove so we can make the story palatable. But the Narnia books is more of what can we add? And I think that's one of the things that I have kind of always enjoyed about the movies is, okay, what are they adding? Because there's really a lot you can just like, there's like Lewis was like trying to tell a kid's story. And so he's not really concerned with like, describing super everything in detail. And so there's a lot of things like he kind of just, just didn't focus on, which is fine because like that wasn't the point. So like, I mean, in like the first Narnia movie, like they really expand on the battle scene, and that's pretty much glossed over entirely in the book. So I think that's kind of one of the strengths, and also a bit of a weakness, but that can be a strength, is that you can add and you can really just like fill a 1-hour movie and there you go. And so I think that's why the movie format works better, and the TV show, like it can be fine, but that seems to be really stretching it for those, unless you do like a couple books per season or however you're going to do it, or maybe do different like the first 3 and like 1 or 2 seasons, or I'm not really sure how they're going to do that. But again, I'm a bit more hesitant about all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The direct quote from Gerwig is that it's a very new take on Narnia. It's all about rock and roll. Oh boy. We love when directors say we're going to have a new take on this very established either franchise or book series. We did our book to movie adaptation episode. We really like it when they do that, don't we?
Yeah, I'm I don't, especially the Narnia books. Like, there's just I don't see what the point is there. Like, I thought I kind of was hoping, and I think we're kind of reaching the point where the era of brave, new, stunning adaptation is kind of beginning to go by the wayside. I think we're starting to at least see more of that become less. People don't seem to be liking that as much. So, but that's all of that. Just that's not making me feel any more confident at all. Especially because Greta Gerwig did Barbie, so I'm not sure how the adaptation for some of the women are going to go in that. Especially because it's like, it's set in a older style England as well. So, in which that's not like that was a really big theme in the books, anyways. But yeah, I'm just kind of not holding out a lot of hope for a super fantastic adaptation. Again, there's always a possibility, but I think the movies show that you can pretty much just do like an hour and a half, or maybe they were a little longer than that one. But you don't really have to do a whole lot, I think, to make a good, simple, enjoyable Narnia movie. And I think really the biggest tragedy is that they didn't finish them, and I don't really know why. I'm assuming just because of profit reasons. But I think I really would have hoped that they would have been able to do that, like the Harry Potter. I think that could have been like a nice, solid franchise on its own. But yeah.
I mean, to be fair, the Chronicles of Narnia doesn't belittle women in any way. They're very empowered. They're very strong women, I would say. And yet there's the themes of Edmund was wrong and Lucy was right. And that can be expounded upon in a certain creator's perspective, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Trust me, believe me. Again, to use Netflix tried to adapt The Witcher, and if you're a Witcher fan, everyone knows about Witcher Blood Origin, and that's pretty much all that needs to be said about that whole thing. And let's just say I don't know what's going to happen again. It's going to come out in a while. I don't want to harp on this too much, but the signs that I've been given right now are like, this seems like it's going to be a very woke movie or woke TV show. Again, I want to be careful with just throwing those words out because people say things like all the time. But when I say that, people know what I'm thinking of, and that's what I'm more concerned of what's going to happen with this. But again, I don't know. I mean, I probably won't be able to watch it anyways when it comes out because I don't have a Netflix account, but I will be curious to see what will be produced. And I'm hoping it's going to be good, but I'm not holding out a lot of hope that it's going to be good.
I agree. I do think that there's potential to continue into all 7 books, I believe. 7, correct? I think that they should have done that with the movies, for sure. I think that would have been fun. And I think that I would say that that's the reason that they're remaking it, is because there is an incomplete, unfinished saga of, 3 out of 7 movies, 3 out of 7 stories. But Harry Potter got all of its books adapted, and now they're making a TV show with a whole new cast. Do you really need that? Unless we can talk more about it at adaptations.
Although, to be fair, that's Harry Potter. I mean, if you want money, Harry Potter right there. Just adapt it however you want. Like that's. I think that's again, Narnia is probably being adapted. I think it was. I don't know this because I haven't researched it, but I would assume that the reason that they didn't make any more movies was because it wasn't being profitable enough for them. I would assume that would be the main reason, because it's Disney and whatnot. I assume that's the main reason, and I assume also that they're bringing it back again because people have had especially people of our generation have like, oh, we really like what could have been, have that type of a feeling towards the Narnia movies, and so they want an adaptation that actually finishes and completely adapts all of the books, and so that's probably where they're going with, hoping to go for, at least with this TV show. But now we'll see.
I think if you're going to retell a story that's already well known, it needs to be in a different format. I don't think just switching out actors is enough. For example, people have talked about The Crow and how the original The Crow movie, I don't know how else to say that, is a very good movie. I've never seen it. I'm just going off of what I've seen the critical drinkers say about it. But then they remade the movie now in 2024, I believe, and it just wasn't as good. Like obviously they had a new actor. They had movie from the ground up. It's not like they're making a sequel or using anything from the previous adaptation, but it just doesn't work and nobody asked for it. So if you don't have anything new to add, and like I said, actors don't count, I don't think it should be made. Now, a TV show could provide a little bit different perspective, only because of how episodic it can be. Josh and I talked about this with The Last of Us and how you can't do a Last of Us movie because there's so much story. And we even think that The Last of Us TV show fell flat, not only on morals, but also just in content. They cut a lot of story, even for a TV show. TV shows can go on, you can have 20, 24 hours of story for TV shows, and they just keep getting shorter and shorter for some reason. But obviously not a movie needed. My point with all this being, with Narnia now becoming a TV show, there is chance to do something different with the episodic style. I'll give them that much. I do think the movies look great, so I don't think there's really any CG that you can redo. Obviously, there's going to be style differences and editing differences and actor differences, but I don't think that constitutes or even asks for a new movie. I think that visuals, when it comes to like animation, more specifically, like anime. If you were to tell the Chronicles of Narnia in anime style, that would be very different and probably would be well warranted,
Yeah.
It all depends on why. And sometimes the answer often falls to money. Money is just the only reason they're redoing it, is to milk it as much as possible. And sometimes, even though I say the actor doesn't make a difference, whether they recast or whatever, it honestly is. That is the reason. It's like, oh, well, this person could bring a new one. And that's technically my argument about Daredevil. But Zach can come after me in a different episode when he's actually here to say how wrong I am about, actors playing and whatever. Daredevil Born Again is releasing now, and so now I'm happy.
I have no care either way for the Daredevil thing, so it doesn't matter to me.
You didn't listen to the song?
But hey, he's back, so let the devil out.
Oh, I think it. Which one though? There's a couple versions. I haven't listened to the one that you released most recently.
Oh, well, I released Recasting Daredevil as its own lyric video. I haven't released any of our other messing around AI songs. So,
what do you mean? That we all sung? That was produced
oh,
by
yeah.
Seth.
Sorry,
what
right.
Are you talking about, Seth?
That was our beautiful voices.
Yes,
all
that's
four
right.
Of us.
No AI was used in this production. I think that you do have a point. You could do a different style. Like, I think honestly, something that could maybe even work better for the Narnia movies is do like an hour-long animated like movie for each book, and then I think that you could probably much do that. Keep it simple and fun, entertaining. But there's or an anime thing. Like there's the recent Lord of the Rings anime, which I haven't watched, but has come out, and I have heard that it was pretty like either meh or bad, at least in regards to story. But I can't confirm that. I think that could work very well. Again, I'm going to just say though that you're talking about like a story format and TV shows, and the problem. I'm still going to keep on making the argument that the movie format I think is going to work better because each story is its own thing. And in an episodic format, each episode kind of needs to be a mini story and have like something intriguing, and usually have a cliffhanger so you watch the next episode. And I don't think that format works well for the Narnia books because there's so little in them, and you'd have to be like adding a lot. And I think that you'd just be adding more unnecessary drama and just really focusing on stuff that we don't really need to or care to, or just adding things that just aren't going to add much of value to the story you're trying to tell and adapting this thing. Whereas like a movie is like, it's a complete story in and of itself. That's just my argument I'm making for why I think a movie adaptation is going to work better, but I don't really care as much, and it's going to be what it's going to be. So, but yeah, I don't really care to harp on that any more than I already need to.
Yeah. So I had been surprised that the movies were on Disney Plus. Only Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Prince Caspian are.
Really?
Because the third movie was made by 20th Century Studios, 20th Century Fox. And I don't know why.
There must be like some sort of crazy legal. Maybe that's in part because maybe they got the rights to it, or because I don't really know who has the rights to the Narnia property. Maybe that's like they gave it to Disney for a while to produce a film, and then they did it to 20th Century Fox, and that's why there's crazy stuff going on. Maybe that's part of it.
Well, the interesting part is that 20th Century Fox or Studios, I don't actually remember, made the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, but Fox was bought out by Disney, and that's why we have all the X-Men movies on Disney Plus. But I guess that doesn't count for that doesn't count for the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. It's on Max right now, so I don't know if there's just a contract that needs to expire for that one specifically. But that's just interesting that it's on 20th Century Studio. I mean, it's interesting that it's on Max and not on Disney Plus like it should be. But what's also funny, as I was looking for Voyage of the Dawn Treader, info, because I was like, what's going on? I found the trailer. I was just watching it. The trailer on the 20th Century Studios UK is uploaded at 360p quality. And even for 2010, that's really bad. And just a nitpick that I have that's like, why would you upload a trailer for a major motion picture in 360p? But I don't know, just looks garbage. Little rant over.
Okay. All right. Well, good to know that fact.
Yes, my fun facts of the day. Question: do you think that the White Witch was milked? Not literally. Do not think of that weirdly. I'm saying her usage in the movie.
You might want to recut that and rephrase that.
No, I like her usage being milked for content. Like, she's not in any of the other stories, and yet she's in all three movies. You know what I'm saying?
Was she in the third one?
I can't think of a better word than milked, so I'm sorry.
Well, one, it's a famous actor, or
yeah,
maybe that. No, I think she was a famous actor before that.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
Tilda Swinton is very famous.
I guess. I don't know. I did. The second one was like in the book. I think there is like a reference to like basically a cult that kind of follows the White Witch. So yeah, it kind of works. The third one, she's only briefly there. So I think, and that was more of the flashback one as well. So I think that one's a little bit. I maybe a little bit, but not a whole. Like, she's not doesn't really do anything of consequence in the other two, besides just appearing and being like, "Hey, I'm in and ice, and I want to be free. Oh, I'm dead now again." That's pretty much it. Although I will say, in the second one, I watched that as a kid, and that one scene where like they're like they have like the creepy crow hag lady and the werewolf, and it was creepy. And I watched it again recently with my siblings. And I was like, "Ooh, man, I was kind of terrified of that as a kid." I can see why. It's like, like they got like they're cutting blood. There's like ice for it's like, ooh, there's creepy stuff going on there. Yeah,
but just because I'm familiar with the stories, spoilers, I haven't read the book. I've listened to the audio drama from Focus on the Family Radio Theater, which
if you're a homeschool, that's pretty much that's like part of that's included in the kit when you're born. Like, it's just like it's a must listen to. Everyone has to. I'm like half homeschooled because I went to private school, so I listen to it as well. So
yeah, it's really well done.
It is,
and they adhere to the story really well.
That's because like they're literally just replaying the story, but with different voice actors and sound effects. It's an audio drama, is technically what it's called.
Yeah, but that's where I get the story knowledge from. I've listened to those multiple times. But I know that the White Witch does not appear in any of them besides the Magician's Nephew, obviously. That's where she gets her start. But I just think that they wanted to use Tilda Swinton again.
Probably.
And that's probably the most that they drifted. Actually, no, I take that back. I remember that people don't like the Voyage of the Dawn Treader because it's pretty far from its source material.
It's more like they change a lot of the detail. I think this is with all the books or all the movies. They change a lot of the details, like, and they kind of expand on some aspects, specifically the fighting parts. Like, they add a lot more action because it's like a movie and you got to have that, especially like the battle scenes, which I will say I do love the battle scenes in the first two movies. They're one of my favorites in any fantasy movies, but none of those are included in the books. Like, especially in like the first book, like you don't even watch the battle. It's just they basically say, oh yes, this is what happened, and then this happened. That's pretty much all you get. So, and that's, again, I think that's fine where you're adding stuff, because when Lewis is writing this, he's writing this for kids, and they're entertaining in a different way, and they're not all focused on like, and then he brought the sword down and cut down the evil person. Like they're fun, adventurous, but he doesn't include everything that is added in the movies, because they need to expand the time frame, and they want more action and adventure and different parts that are included, which I think for the most part, there's parts that you can, if you want to be a Narnian purist, like you can have I think there are things that you can maybe criticize some of the movies for, but for the most part, they do a good job of telling the story, getting most of the facts right. And I think what's really good about the movies is that they get the heart of the story correct, in the sense that, like, Lewis is a very well-known Christian apologist. Most people know him for the books, but a lot of people also know him for the other books that he wrote, this nonfiction books, which is all about, like, apologetics and thinking about, like, theology and various doctrines. I've been reading, like, through Miracles recently that he wrote, and he's a very maybe not eloquent is actually the best word. I mean, he's very, like, he's just a very smart apologist for, and he's a very well-known Christian, especially because he was friends with Lewis. And you can just see that when you're reading the books, you can just, like, feel how that's all, like, how what he understands and what he believes is being inputted into his work. And like, everyone, like, is going to say, like, like, for example, Aslan is supposed to be Jesus, and there's different characters who are very clearly allegories for different things. And again, that's, like, Lewis wasn't trying to be subtle, and that wasn't the point. And what I really appreciate when I'm watching the movies is that, generally speaking, they're able to get to the heart. Like, especially in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, when they almost one for one have that one phrase where Aslan says, in your place, no, sorry, in your land, country, whatever,
World.
Where you're from, in your world where you're from, I have a different name. Like, that's, like, almost copied right from the book, and so they're able to, like, connect those and make those connections. So I think I just appreciate the fact that they're very good, generally speaking, at kind of getting at the heart of the book. So, where they're a bit more fun. There's, like, some, like, dark moments, I suppose, where there's, like, maybe not like dark in the sense that we might think of them, but, like, there's, like, some, things are kind of going bad, but they very much kind of capture, I think, the essence of a lot of the books, although they're not quite as, like, kids oriented necessarily, but they have those aspects to them that make them engaging, especially for an adult audience.
I've heard it said that Lewis is not that subtle and Tolkien was very subtle, and that we talked about that in the Lord of the Rings episodes. Just his hero character that is kind of the savior character is kind of spread out amongst different characters, whereas Lewis is just, like, he's a straight up allegory, as direct as you can get. And I think that makes it more palatable, I guess. It's interesting, as we've brought up the Netflix show and what that may entail, how they're going to change the story at its core, because I don't think that you can do that with something as like Chronicles of Narnia to get it wrong and misrepresent the gospel that the at least The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe portray in the saving of Edmund through the sacrifice of Aslan. It's just embedded. It's so interwoven to the story that there's no way to avoid it. And unless, and if you change that, if Gerwig changes that, it's going to turn into, Narnia purist Christians, and probably everyone's going to be mad. Unless they're Greta Gerwig fans, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, she's so daring.
She has a certain style. You just need to understand it.
Yeah. And so but then you lose, like, the actual meaning. And I'm saying that because I've talked with Isaac about how Star Wars is being treated. And I feel like the people who enjoy or started their Star Wars journey when either the original trilogy or the prequels were coming out, or Clone Wars, or even anytime before Disney bought Lucasfilm, are the people who are the real fans. Anyone who started enjoying Star Wars after that, with the sequel trilogy, with the TV shows, just has a different standard and will let anything go. And everyone else, like us, who enjoys the first six as really the true canon, just are the ones who are going to be more unaccepting, more detailed about how they take care or not take care of this franchise.
Yeah, and that's the main reason I'm really hesitant about any adaptation of Narnia or modern adaptation of Narnia, because we've seen, I'd say, good adaptations, because Lewis is so quite outspoken in what he's trying to tell you. Like, it's like, wow, Aslan dies. Oh, and he's resurrected. Wow, what could be? What's going on here? What, and all of them have it. Like, one of my favorite ones is like the last one, where it's like, wow, the world's ending. What could? And then like stuff happens, and like what could this be matching up to? It's almost like he's a Christian or something. So, if you're going to be producing that, you have to have that in mind. The same thing for Lord of the Rings, and I think either you're going to, because you're coming at it from a different perspective, if you're like just like secular, or you're not even trying to understand Lewis's deep Christianity and his profound beliefs that changed his life and impacted him throughout all of his work, then like you're not going to get the heart of the Narnia adaptation you're trying to make, and it's just going to feel, I think, hollow. And even if like even if like, for example, in this adaptation that is coming up, like they get like the facts right, so to speak, for the most part, but you're not getting the heart of what's going on. It's just going to be a secular creation, or it's just going to be a secular copy, rather, of something that's just going to feel hollow. It's not going to have the soul of the work of what Lewis was trying to impart into it. And that's, I think, is going to be the main issue, probably, I think, what is going to happen, because they're not going to catch that essence. Which, I mean, you could debate how well the movies do that, but I think, at least for the first one, I think they do a really good job at capturing most of that and kind of the point of it. And yeah, so.
Yeah. I have a confession to make. I actually liked Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And a lot of people disagree with me because it's drifts so far from the original. But I think I think I have an affinity towards like the Pirates of the Caribbean style.
Yeah.
Ship sailing and adventure out in the open. You know, the other two are kind of just in Narnia all the time. And
well, that's the reason I liked the first two, especially because, again, the battle scenes, like, I just love them. And like the first one, you know, you got like the big fighting and they clash together, and there's, oh my gosh, there's so many cool things going on here. And the second one, you know, have the trees and the catapults and they're underground. And I just love those. And the Voyage of the Dawn Treader is fine. It's just like, oh, they're on a ship and then they do this and then they do this. And like, it's worked for some people. I guess you're one of those people. I don't care about it as much. It's not as appealing to me personally. I know that there's also a lot of people who don't like the differences they made. And I think this kind of goes to my point where they captured most of what the story is trying to say. Like, you know, Eustace turns into a dragon, like how he has to change and how that impacts him. And also like how each of the characters, like they go on different islands and they encounter different things. And that is altering how they think about themselves. And, you know, like Edmund has to grapple with, like, you know, he's not really in charge. And, you know, Lucy has to grapple with the fact that, like, she's getting older as well. And then, you know, she doesn't want to leave Narnia and she's wondering about that. And I think they get most of that. And the details are important, but they're not as necessarily as important as the essence, the heart, which is kind of what I'm saying is more important to capture that. And especially at the ending where they're going, where they meet with Aslan, and when like Reepicheep decides to go over, who's the best character, by the way. I think they capture most of that, which is why it works. So, but it's also just not my favorite as much because, you know, I want to see big fighting and not, oh, ship.
Yeah. Of the three, I enjoy watching Voyage of the Dawn Treader more. Apparently I can't now because it's on Max. Need an actual DVD or something. But
I have a DVD, but you are far away, so sorry. Come to my house and I'll loan it.
I do like each of them in their own way. I like Prince Caspian for the combat, for sure. I think the sword fight that I'm watching right now between Peter and the King is a really good one. I believe the war immediately following is also really good. And again, all for PG is really great.
Yeah, which it's still kind of surprising me that that's PG, because some of the, like, again, rewatching them as an adult, I'm like, wow, like there's no swearing or anything like that, or anything lewd or any or a lot of graphic violence, but there's, like, you know, like there's fighting, like these people are like, and there's not like a whole, but it's just interesting like how that is actually PG, but yet it's still pretty enjoyable. So that's just kind of interesting for me. But I think you're also you've touched on like the good quality, which is something else that is I'm curious to see how it's going to come with a new adaptation. Not saying that they're not going to spend money on it. I am assuming they're going to be putting a good budget into trying to making this TV show, but the movies are like really good quality, especially as you rewatch them and thinking like, when did the first one come out? Like that was like late 2000s?
2005.
Oh,
the
really?
Voyage of the Dawn Treader came out 2010.
Really? Wow. That's earlier than I thought. But like the CGI is like really good and it holds up pretty well. And like the actors do a good job. I mean, you know, they're child actors. So for being kid actors, they did a really good job. And like this, I've just kind of been impressed, like rewatching them, like with the CGI and the costuming and, you know, all the set pieces that they're able to do. Like it all looks really good, especially when you can compare like modern movies and to this. And it's like, wow, what happened?
Yeah. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is 2005. Prince Caspian was 2008, and The Voyage of the Dawn Treader is 2010. Modern Hollywood could never. Like, they cannot turn around movies quicker than 2 years. Like, it's crazy that they're taking so long, and that's impressive. Fun fact, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was the third highest grossing movie of 2005. Under Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire and Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, which is now coming back in theaters on my birthday. So I'm definitely going to go see that. That was actually that year was really good for movies, 2005. So those top three, Madagascar, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Batman Begins.
Wow. That's a big movie. Okay, so I'm like calculating it out. So it's kind of like 2 or 3 years ish between each movie. So if like they kept on making movies, then like pretty much by like 2020 or around then, they would have pretty much completed the series.
Yeah.
Now I feel sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is interesting. Prince Caspian, this is from Wikipedia, obviously true. Prince Caspian was the last Chronicles of Narnia film to be co-produced by Walt Disney, as 20th Century Fox became the distributor for the next film, Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Due to budgetary disputes between Disney and Walden Media. But as a result of Disney eventually purchasing 21st Century Fox in 2019, Disney now owns the rights to all of the films in the series. But it's not on Disney Plus. And so I believe that my opinion or my idea is right, that there's still like a contract with Max, but that didn't exist in 2019. So why is Voyage of the Dawn Treader on Max?
I don't know, that is really weird though. There must be some sort of like there just has to be some sort of weird legal behind the scenes something that's going on, or some reason why that is that way that is, because you would have thought they would have want all three of them together, but I don't know. And
then on the Voyage of the Dawn Treader page, an adaptation of the Magician's Nephew was to be the fourth entry in the film series, but in the fall of 2011, Walden Media's contract with C.S. Lewis's estate expired. So it was the estate contract.
Well, that would have been interesting to do the Magician's Nephew as the next one, because that's kind of like
I think
that's the
makes
prequel
sense,
one.
though.
I mean, it kind of does, because there's always the question of how do you want, and actually. Maybe that's a good question to consider how they're going to do for the TV show. I assume they're not going to do it in chronological order, because when you read the books, there's essentially Lewis wrote them, you know, like The Lion, the Witch, like, you know, he wrote the first couple books, but I think like in between the later books, he wrote kind of prequel books essentially, which are so it gets kind of a little confusing. Like either you can read them in like the order of the story chronologically, or you can read them chronologically as they were written and published.
Lewis released Magician's Nephew as the 6th book.
Yeah.
So he wrote that right before he wrote The Last Battle, which is very interesting.
And I would see, this is making me really sad though, because I'm just imagining a Disney, if they kept the good quality, but they produced The Last Battle, like that would have been really cool if they had done it right, and they had good quality for all of they kept the quality consistent. That would have been like so cool, because Last Battle is, I mean, it's Revelation-esque, where it's like, you know, everything that's, you know, like there's fire and there's explosions and there's like drama and all of that, like, you know, so the most movie you can ever movie. So
yeah. This is interesting. Somebody has figured out the chronology in Narnia as it pertains to the real world, and how, like, it says in Magician's Nephew, Earth is in the year 1900 and Narnia is in the year 1. But then the last battle, it happens on Earth in 1949, and Narnia is 2555, and that's when it ends. Just interesting.
Yeah, in high school, I had a book I read a book from the library called The Narnia Companion, which it's like a very geeky type of book, although it's very professional. And I mean, there's actually surprising, like, you know how like there's like Tolkien scholars, there's a subsect of people who are kind of like Lewis scholars, and especially for like Narnia in particular. I mean, because there's nerds for everything. But that book was really good because they would focus on like every single character, all the timelines, all of like they had like really good maps. It was very, very entertaining to kind of see like a lot of the inspirations and add more details. Like, for example, it focused on like, you know, how all of the animal characters embody certain traits and attributes. Like Reepicheep is courage, which is ironic because he's a mouse, but that's why it kind of works as well, because he's a super he's a very courageous mouse.
Yep.
Who also, you know, is a knight, and that the irony is very rich in that. But there's also like the badgers, there's the beavers, and how they kind of embody different attributes and a particular archetype as well. And it's very interesting to kind of see the inspiration that Lewis was working with from his own time and how that bled into his work and kind of what he's trying to say with all of these characters. Because again, like it's a lot of times it's one for one, or you can very much see how this is designed for kids because it's a kid's story. So it's like, you know, people represent different ideals or things like that, or they're trying to teach a lesson to children. So
I'm thinking about the other stories, and Last Battle definitely stands out. But in all honesty, the Silver Chair is pretty good. But The Horse and His Boy is definitely the most dullest, in my opinion. Magician's Nephew isn't far behind, but I think getting interest in those two would have been pretty difficult. But I definitely would have loved to see the Silver Chair in The Last Battle.
Yeah.
Just thinking about what could have been. What could have been.
Mm-hmm. And Silver Chair is interesting because it's kind of like the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, where it's not quite so flashy in the sense that it's quite literally because it's like they go into the underground, and so it's very dark and all of that. And it's a lot of setup, but it's also a lot of payoff as well. Because of the Caspian thing with his son and all that going on, and you know, a lot of just that's almost like not quite a detective story, but almost like more of a crime thriller-esque in the sense that you're trying to figure out something and trying to solve something and trying to survive in something rather than fighting a witch or breaking a curse or slaying a dragon type of a story necessarily. So and you know what? Honestly, that's like another kind of, I think, strength you could pull on for the Narnia movies is that they're very entertaining, but they're kind of almost different genres within themselves, or at least kind of explore different like genres in themselves, because there's like different aspects. Like the Voyage of the Dawn Treader is very much like an adventure story out on the sea. Like, you know, we're out on a boat, we're exploring islands, we encounter crazy things, curses, monsters. It's that type of story, whereas the other ones are a bit different. They kind of focus on different stuff. So I think that's also kind of another strength you can pull on if you wanted to adapt them.
I'm thinking about The Last Battle and what that movie would have looked like. And I'm just thinking about what Shift would have looked like, because like monkey technology has gotten so far with like Planet of the Apes and such.
Well, especially because like when you read like the last parts of The Last Battle, it gets even, because most of the time it's relatively tame, where it's like, you know, we're following our characters and they're trying to get some people together, and then there's some fighting and dramatic fighting, and then people are thrown into the stall or whatever, and once like people get inside the stall, things really just go like from like 0 to 100, because like, I mean, there's like the one scene where like Father Time, who's the giant who's been slumbering underground for all of eternity, wakes up and like he's so big that he literally crushes the sun, and like the stars start falling, and like it kind of goes crazy. But what really kind of makes me sad is that you could almost have like an Endgame's Portal type of scene, only it's more of a, look, this is everyone who's been a part of this franchise, and we're all here at once, except for Susan, but you know. Although this is the one that I've had for the longest time, whereas I've always pictured it so clearly, where, you know, you have like the last scene and like everyone's here and they're all happy, and like, you know, we're it's a better place. It's basically heaven, you know, like we're in the Shadowlands, but it's beyond the Shadowlands, and it's better, it's more real than real life, that type of an idea. And you know, you have that roll credits, very happy, but then you could have a post-credit scene where it's the actor who plays Susan, Susan who's grown up or whatever, and she's because in the story, it's the fact that Susan's alone and her family has pretty much all died, and that's what's revealed at the very end. It's like they've all actually died in a train crash. And, she's very sad, whatever. But then, she starts to remember just a little bit, like a hint of Narnia. You hear a lion roar. Fade to black. There you go. Cinema. That's like my dream version of how things could have gone, and maybe how things could possibly go by the time I'm dead. So, but maybe they'll try another adaptation or two.
Yeah.
Besides the one. So.
I wanted to pick your brain because you obviously are more versed in the books and Lewis in general. He has always said that Chronicles of Narnia is not supposed to be an allegory for Christianity, when it's very hard to see that it's not, at least for The Last Battle and Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe specifically. Well, I can see his argument for the others, but he said that he never intended to write it like that.
Yeah, he didn't. It's more the fact that, and this is kind of actually the way that Tolkien did it, is like Tolkien isn't trying to say, this is this and this and this and this and this. I mean, Tolkien's essentially writing a story, and all of his experiences and the things that he's seen and the things that he believes, those flow into his work. And it's the same thing for Lewis. Lewis started out, if I remember correctly, he started out with the image of a fawn and near a lamppost, and it's snowing, and he's got an umbrella. That's like where Narnia originated from. And from there, it just expanded. But because Lewis is such a very fervent Christian, all of his, beliefs and his experiences with Christianity flowed into that. And so it's not that he necessarily said, yes, I'm going to make a lion, and he's going to be Jesus, and he's going to, and they're like one for one. That's not his goal, or at least that's not how he set out to do it. But as he is writing it, he essentially it just flows into his work. And as he keeps on writing it, that's you can just see that throughout all of his book, just like the Christian elements, the Christian themes, the Christian, not necessarily always like one for one. I think Aslan is like very clear one for one, but I don't think that was necessarily intentional, because if you're writing a story about kids and and there's this super powerful person who's helping them, who's kind of the guide, well, who do you think of? Like, that's essentially what God is like for us. So it's not necessarily that he intended to make them a one for one, but that's just like how it happens. That's the source is going to impact what you're going to create, and because of that, because of the source that he has, that's what's flowing into his work. But that's why Christians use like Narnia all the time for different for trying to understand certain aspects, because that's how Lewis is also understanding various aspects. For example, I hear it all the time where people kind of like use the one, it's either a phrase or the part of the story where they talk about Aslan isn't a tame lion, and how Jesus isn't, he's good, but he's not safe. I don't think that Lewis was, at least when he wrote that originally, wasn't necessarily trying to say something about Jesus, but that's just how he understands Jesus. And because of that, he's writing that into his Jesus-like character, because Aslan is a Jesus-like character in how he embodies various attributes like that. So I think maybe he was a bit more intentional as he came on there, but as he continued to write it, but at least at the start, it wasn't. And that's kind of what makes it better, even, because if Christians kind of have a tendency to make bad stuff when we're very intentionally trying to produce works like that, anything by Pureflix, it's like, oh, wow, what could the message be in this? I don't know. So I think that's also kind of why it's so good, is because he's not necessarily, at least originally, trying to say, oh, you need to convert to Christianity, but he's able to convey Christian themes in such a way that it makes you want to learn and consider, think about it more, and reflect on how do I understand God, and how do I understand his power, but also his goodness. And that's, I think, kind of one of the strengths of Narnia as well.
Yeah. And
just, that's kind of how, to my understanding, that's how it works out, and how he developed it as he went on.
Yeah, and that's what I believe about being sub-creators. I brought up Tolkien's quote before, and what I've argued is that there's always an idea of what a savior should be and do, and why that resonates with us. And obviously, C.S. Lewis wrote many other apologetic books, so he's very well versed in his theology. but just that it came out as that, and he just it seems tricky for him to be like, it didn't mean to, and yet it's such a plain allegory for Christ. It just happened that way. But I think it works, and however he chose to expand the story into the other 6 books was great. And it came out. It was the story he felt most called to, and that's because it's such an amazing story, and it actually happened. It just happens to be told in a different format, and I love it.
Well, and that's why I love the quote by G.K. Chesterton. I always, flip those around, and I'm not going to remember the full quote correctly, but it's essentially what he's saying is that you don't need to make everything Christian. You don't need to make everything that's produced to be more Christian. You need to make more Christians be artists, because again, it's a source. If you have people if you're a Christian, then, and if you are truly believe in Christianity and you are a true believer, then that's going to impact everything you do. And if you're an artist and you're a Christian who creates art, then your Christian beliefs are going to impact your art. They're going to flow into your art if you're writing or painting. So, and that's what is more important than like saying, oh, okay, this thing I'm creating, it doesn't have profanity. It doesn't have, graphic violence. It doesn't have, sex before marriage. It doesn't have this list of things or whatever. And it's technically Christian because of that. That's going to be different versus someone who is genuinely Christian. And you can see that in their art, like I can kind of tell that when like you're reading like a book who's written by a Christian versus a book that's not, and they're kind of telling a similar story, but because of that background and the source that's producing it, it's going to have a different outcome.
Thank you for that. I think our time is wrapping up here, but I appreciate your insight, and I don't know, these are good movies. Wish they could have continued, and we'll see what comes in a year and a half, over a year and a half, almost 2 years. Maybe we'll do another episode then. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see how long this goes.
Yeah. I'm not going to really following it that much. I know it's been in the works for a while, and we'll see how it looks when it comes out. Again, not holding out a lot of hope, but, it is what it is. We'll see how it goes. But, yeah, again, I think these movies are very enjoyable films. They're the type of films that I like because you can put them in and you can just enjoy them. It's not super complicated. They're not 3 hours long and you have to talk with your friends about, what does this actually mean, and watch it 5 times over to figure it out. Unlike Nolan films, which are their own type of fun. They're let's put it in. What do you want to watch tonight type of a film, either with the family, with a group of friends, and also just, read the books. Like, they're really not that long. They're fairly short, and they're meant for kids, but they got like a lot of good content in them because of the person who's writing them, or just read other stuff by Lewis. Like, he's a very good author. So, and he's a very smart guy with a lot to say about a lot of different things. Yep,
that's a fact. All right, well, thank you for talking tonight. Wish we could have the rest of the boys, but maybe we'll do that some other time. All right, listener, thank you for listening. Watcher, thank you for watching. Make sure to check out last week's episode if you didn't. It was really fun with Josh and Andy from Ninjas or Butterflies. Check out our merch and follow us on social media and share this with a friend. Just one, and that's all you need to do. Till next week, know that you're alive. God bless.
I'm trying to think of some funny way to end this that's related to Narnia, but I can't think of anything besides maybe see you in the wardrobe, or until the last battle, and the magician's nephew comes. I will see you next time.
That's a wrap. He's mine now.
Okay. All right, bye. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm wired in. You still need to go with where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Where there's a will, there's a way, and so I'm here, so...
Either way.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
All right, bye, guys.